Welcome to the Barry Tramel Show here on Sellout Crowd. And on this fine September morning, we are joined by a Sooner icon, Dusty Dvoracek, great defensive tackle for Bob Stoops squads of a generation ago, who has now embarked on a meteoric career with ESPN as a Saturday analyst. Dusty Dvoracek, welcome to the show.
Barry, an absolute pleasure. Congratulations to you on your new ventures. We go back a long way, Mr. Tramel. It's an honor and a privilege to be on your show. How the heck are you doing?
Well, I'm doing good. Anybody that has been around me goes back a long way. I mean, you go back. You came in with Tommy Harris in 2001. Do you ever sit around and say, 22 years ago, where did the time go? That's what old people say. Are you saying it?
Yes, I am. It really goes fast. And man, what a glorious time it was. The ups, the downs, and the all arounds. My wife and I have been together for 20 years now, believe it or not. So it's wild and crazy. And yeah, I came in from Lake Dallas, Texas, a green, not knowing what I was getting myself into, from an on the field football player to this Oklahoma fan base that is just amazing, to everything, to, this is home. It's crazy, Barry. I'm a Texas kid through and through, but I've lived the majority of my life in the great state of Oklahoma. So I consider myself an Oklahoman, but I still, obviously my roots are from Texas. But it's, I tell people all the time, the best opportunity of my life and the best decision was to go play for Bob Stoops. It's led me to where I am here today, both in my personal life and my professional life.
Well, when you got here, you spent 5 years here, grew up, as you said, Lake Dallas. I assume you grew up dreaming of playing football. Did you ever think you'd be in the broadcast booth?
I did not. No. I thought I got my business degree, which I'm, by the way, very proud of, that I keep right here behind me. And I never, college football was always my dream. From very young, I knew what I wanted. I was very focused. I was very determined. I've got a sixth grader now and an eighth grader. And when I was in sixth grade, I asked for a weight bench for Christmas. And because I wanted to get a scholarship. It's from a low income family. My parents did not go to college. And it was, in my mind, it was earn a scholarship or go to work. And so that was kind of what I was always set on. So really worked hard and was able to get a scholarship, first person from Lake Dallas High School ever to get an athletic scholarship. And I just wanted to get school paid for and play football and then get a job and have a family and be at work and stuff. And even going through college, like I took my academics very serious. I thought that was my future. And I thought I was going to get into the business world and hopefully flourish there. But I was able to play football past college, and the broadcasting thing, like I was that kid, Barry, like going through like elementary school, middle school, back when they had the sports centers that would go on a loop from like 5 a.m. to like 9.
Yeah.
I would wake up. I wasn't a good sleeper. So I'd wake up at like 5 and I would try to watch 3 sports centers, and they were 30-minute shows, and I'd memorize them. And I would go to school, and I was basically doing radio without knowing it well before my radio days, because all I would do is regurgitate stats and numbers and storylines of what was happening in the sports world. So I think that was always my passion. I just didn't realize it until after I was done playing. And Randy LaFoon at KREF gave me my first opportunity, and it's gone pretty well from there.
Well, looking back to when you played, we always like talking to Dusty Dvoracek, and I think it's because what people have just seen in the last 3 or 4 minutes. You love to talk. You love to say interesting things. That's what we're looking for. We're not looking necessarily for any kind of scandal. We just like to talk to interesting people. Is that just your personality? Was that a conscious effort? Hey, I want to be good with the media when you got to Norman.
I've just always tried to be me, the good and the bad, right? Like it's just, you're going to get what you get. And I think it wasn't really a conscious effort. I was just real with you guys back then. And I try to be real on my radio shows. Obviously, locally did it for a long time here. I worked with you quite a bit there at WWLS. I now have a national radio show on Sirius XM in the morning with Danny Cannell. But I don't think I ever made any kind of conscious effort. I just thought, I wanted to, if I had the opportunity to answer questions, I was going to be me. And you usually get a lot of fire, you get a lot of passion, and you get real. And there's a lot of people that aren't real, and kind of, whether it's coach speak or player speak or tell the media what they want to hear, that's well and good. I'm not here to criticize that, but that's not really me. And that's not the way I go about my broadcasting life. So I wasn't ever playing it up for you guys back in the day. I was just giving you Dusty Dvoracek, and that's what you'll continue to get to if you tune in and check me out.
Well, when you look at college athletes today, what you just described is unorthodox. We don't see a lot of that. Of course, it's not because players are losing their personality. It's because more and more organizations want to contain the message and don't want people saying anything out of school. Not that you really ever did. Trent Smith, your old teammate, he's a little bit of a different, he's a little different on that. Trent would say some provocative things. But have we lost anything, do you think, by this idea of containing the message and trying to control what people might say? You talk to players every week before, for your ESPN preparation. Is this a good thing? Is that a bad thing? Sometimes I just tell people it's just sort of understandable, right? With the way things have gone with social media, with the way just culture is, I can perfectly understand why coaches and athletic departments want to, try to corral the voices. But do you think we've lost anything?
I don't. What was Trent's line? Orange makes him puke. I think that was one.
That was one of them. Yeah,
got people pretty fired up. I don't. And I'll say this, Barry. Like, there's so many outlets, and with NIL and podcasts, and college players have their own podcasts now. Like, that was nothing. I think that it was controlled more than whenever I played than it is currently. There's just so many outlets and so many opportunities and places, that players can speak their mind, can have their platform. Social media has changed the game completely. And I understand why coaches want to try to rein that in. I just think it's tougher now to rein in players and what they have to say than it's ever been before. And I think coaches kind of spout off more now than ever before. Coach Jay Norvell had some interesting comments a couple of weeks ago that made headlines. Just think about this past weekend. Ryan Day coming after Lou Holtz after a monumental win. Who was expecting that? He was fired up, Barry. Like, thank goodness Lou wasn't in the stadium. There might have had to be security to separate those two. Dan Lanning in his pregame speech and really, digging his teeth in, coming after Coach Prime. Have we ever seen a character like that? So I understand what you're saying. I think that coaches will always try to control the message and the narrative. But I would say now we get more real from various outlets, from players. And I think we're in an interesting world where coaches, more now than ever, they're willing to say something, because I think whether they just don't care or they know, hey, if this goes viral, it could actually be a good thing for me. I think it's actually brought a new element to college football that, personally, doing what we do, I absolutely love.
Yeah, I was actually, I was in Cincinnati Saturday night, and we went to a sports bar after finishing up writing, and we're watching all the games, and we sit there and we're watching the end of the Ohio State Notre Dame game, and of course the sound's down, you can't hear anything, and all of a sudden there's Ryan Day with the sideline reporter after the game, and he's just going cuckoo. You could tell he's just almost maniacal, and you think, what could he be upset about? What's he saying? And I did not have Lou Holtz, on the bingo card. I didn't even know Lou Holtz still said anything about college football. But it's a great point. Two of those coaches you mentioned, Dan Lanning and our old pal Jay Norvell, was in reference to Deion Sanders. And the one thing I've found, you tell me as an ESPN broadcaster, but I found Deion to be delightful just because he's stirred everything up. everybody wants to talk about Deion. People want to watch. People want to comment. Sometimes college football can get very traditional, very stoic. Everybody doing the same thing, and all of a sudden, here comes Deion, and it's scorched earth. Everybody wants to talk about it. I've found Deion Sanders delightful. What are your feelings about Deion and what he's done with the college football scene, particularly this last month?
I'm impressed. I respect it. I don't agree with everything Deion says or everything Deion does. That's okay. I don't have to. What I like is he's authentic and he's the same guy he was back as a player. And you can't argue with the fact that he started 3-0. I mean, he took a team that was the laughingstock of the Power Five from a season ago to going in to Fort Worth, Texas, week 1 and beating a team that played for a national championship. I know year over year with the transfer portal roster turnover, but still, you got to be impressed. Now, how good is Colorado really? I think that was kind of shown on Saturday against Oregon. They still have a long way to go to rebuild that roster, but the buzz that he's created in Boulder, the fact that that's been kind of not college sports, but the sports mecca, the last month of the college sports calendar, I think is so impressive. And again, I'm okay with him stirring the pot a little bit. It's bringing out different things from some of these other coaches that are more conventional, which I think is fine. And I do think that Deion, he's going to have success. Like he's having success now, but I think as time goes on, he'll continue to have success. When he was at Jackson State, we would play on my morning show clips all the time of him addressing his team because you see a lot of the flash and the sizzle, but there's an old school mentality. There's a lot of Bobby Bowden in him. Listen to the messaging when he talks to his players. It's not much different than the messaging I got from Bob Stoops or Bobby Bowden was given to those Florida State teams. Again, I know that the clicks and the videos and all that's different. But if you get behind the scenes and you hear his, the way he pushes his players and the messaging he has and what he wants his players to do to graduate college, to be good quality young men, not just good quality football players. How can you not love that? And I think that gets lost in a lot of the Coach Prime effect. But I do think behind the scenes, he's saying the right things. He's doing the right things. And I think here very, very soon, Colorado is going to be a problem for a lot of people, which I just hope, but I know that Brett Yormark as well, he stays in Boulder, Colorado, because that brand with him at the helm is great for the Big 12. And as Oklahoma and Texas will leave, they need as many quality brands as they can get. And I sure hope that we see Coach Prime stay in the Big 12 for as long as possible.
Yeah, Deion Sanders in Stillwater would be a sight to behold. Sign me up for that. Let me ask you, as an ESPN, we talked a few weeks ago, and I think it was a Friday or a Saturday. I asked you about your next week's assignment, and you said, "Well, we won't know until Sunday." What's the process for getting your game? Do you have any politicking power? I mean, I would assume everybody's clamoring for a Deion game. Give me Colorado. Give me Colorado. Or do you just sort of wait for your assignment like, you're in the military or something?
Well, there's certain people that can politic. Kirk Herbstreit gets the game he wants. It's pretty well known. Sean McDonough, he's kind of that number 2. So those guys get theirs. And then after that, I'm with Dave Pasch, my 3rd year with him. We're usually in the mix for anywhere from the 3rd to 5th best game each week. And, there's a lot that goes into it. Bob Wischusen is the voice of the New York Jets. My play-by-play, Dave Pasch, he's the voice of the Arizona Cardinals. So there is an element of schedules and where those guys are going to be that kind of play a role into some of this. But no, I don't text my bosses, and I keep only if it's between you and me. I politicked one time. It was last year, and I got it. I did text my boss, and I said, "Man, I sure would like to be in Stillwater next week." Texas was coming to Stillwater. And sure enough, we got to 3:30 ABC, Oklahoma State, Texas. And it wound up being one of my all-time favorite games I've got to call. That big comeback for Coach Gundy. And that was a huge win at the moment. Oklahoma State was 6-1. And, Sark couldn't finish games. And there was just so many storylines. It was a beautiful scene there in Stillwater. It was a great game, and I absolutely loved it. So that one worked out. But I try not to politic, because here's the thing. You may ask for a game and it looks on paper like a great game, and it winds up being a dog and a blowout. And you may look at a game that's an absolute dog and it winds up being a great game. So the one thing I've tried to remind myself, regardless of the assignment, treat it like it's the biggest and best game each week. No different than if you're a player. Study the film, be focused, be dialed in, and be ready to go to work. And so basically, here's how it goes, Barry. So we finished our game Saturday night. We had Baylor, Texas, ABC primetime Saturday night. I got off the air probably about 10:30. Got into a car, took a car service, went to DFW. So pulled up to DFW about midnight. And by that point, I have no idea where I'm going the next week. Get on a plane to come home so I can coach my son's youth football game yesterday. And, right as the time I'm taking off at about 8:30, I get the email. And the email says Syracuse, Clemson, ABC noon this week. So then it's like getting travel arranged and everything. And that's how the week starts. So I found out at 8:30 yesterday morning. Some weeks it's 2 or 3 in the afternoon. But you try to get your travel booked, it's not easy to get from Oklahoma City to Syracuse, New York. But we're going to be able to get it done. And then you just start your film prep. I try to watch 3 games on each team, usually the previous 3 games. If there's an outlier in a big game that they played before that, I'll try to watch that. Offense, defense, special teams. And that's kind of how the week of prep starts for me. We have coaches meetings. I read a bunch of different articles. I listen to their press conferences. We get a chance to meet with players and coaches throughout the course of the week, with different teams. But it's a grind, man. And it's from Sunday when you find out. It's a build up all the way to kick. You call the game, you do it, and then you flush it. You find out your new assignment, and you're on to the next. We don't have the advantage I did as a player. Your schedule. Kind of what's up ahead. We don't get that luxury in my line of work. It's week to week, and it really keeps you on your toes because you got to be able to be flexible, to be able to adjust, and whatever your bosses throw at you, be ready to take the assignment. And I think the real key, just treat every assignment like it's the biggest game of the week. You can't look at a game and say, oh, like we had Florida State BC a couple weeks ago. Perfect example. Noon ABC, number 3 team in the country. Boston College had lost to Northern Illinois and barely beat Holy Cross on that same field going into that game. I think the spread was like close to 4 touchdowns or something. There was nothing about that game that said it was going to be good. But guess what? Boston College has the ball down 2 with about 3 minutes to play with a chance to win. They're at the 50-yard line down 2, 3 minutes to go with a chance to kick a field goal or score a touchdown to win the game. Had I cheated that prep, had I cheated that game, I'm not ready in those moments to do my job at a high level. And it's just a great example and a great reminder. Treat every game like it's the biggest game because you never know when you may have the biggest upset of the week or you may have one of the most competitive games that you'll call all season.
Well, we talked, I think, the week the season opener. I asked, hey, what game you got? And you said Duke Clemson. And I didn't really say anything, but I thought, that's too bad. I wish you could have got a better game. But you warned me. You said, hey, Duke's potentially for real. They got 17 starters back, 9-14. Mike Elko's doing a great job. Danged if we didn't all see it on, I guess that was Labor Day night, and the Blue Devils stunned the Tigers. So that goes to what you're saying. You got. Let me ask you. You got Clemson again 4 weeks later. Do you like doing repeat teams close together? Do you get a feel? Does that help you with your broadcast? Getting a repeat from a team you saw a few weeks earlier?
I think it just gives you prep is a little bit easier. You're even that much more confident on exactly what you're going to get from players. Now, I did them week 1. They played 3 games since then. So I'll go back and I'll watch all these other 3 games. But I've had Clemson, I think this is my 4th or 5th time over the last couple of years. So I've got a really good familiarity with Coach Sweeney, with his roster, with his players. And yeah, I think that helps. I mean, I can't say I like it more than getting new teams because one thing that I love, and it really helps me with my morning show whenever I'm talking about all of college football. Like I love going out and seeing different teams. And then for myself, studying them, looking at their rosters, getting a chance to see them live. Yeah. So I like both aspects. It's a little bit easier on the prep to get repeat teams, but getting a chance to see all the schools all over the country and have a real sense of who some of the best teams are, who some of the best players are. I think that's a great bonus about what we get to do. But I'd be lying if I didn't say that from putting my boards together that I use in my games each week doesn't make it just a little bit easier. I'm sure you're going to ask, so I'm gonna do this real quick to let you inside the broadcaster's mind. Give me 1 sec. Okay,
There's Dusty's.
So like when I say boards, and I don't know how much people care or know, but I know you care, and I think it'll be intriguing to people. So last week when I go into a game, this is what I have with me up in the booth. Okay, so this is Baylor, Texas, and if you look, I've got notes all over it. So this is my film study. Oh, I got it upside down. This is my film study on players. This has got thoughts from my coaching staff. This has got all my stuff. This is my cheat sheet. Now, I probably know 90 to 95% of this going in, but throughout the week, I'm taking notes. I've got a notebook, and then, day of the game, day before the game, I start to put that on my board. And for me, it's a process, part of my process each week. And it really gets stuck in here once I go put it down on this board. And then once the game happens, I've got this in front of me as I'm calling a football game. And it's really just a reference point that I utilize. So whenever I say a repeat team, like I've got my board, I keep every board that I've done since I've been calling games. My 8th year now at ESPN ABC, and I've got every board of every game I've ever called. And so I'll go back, like for this game, I went back and I looked at my Texas-Oklahoma State board from a season ago just to cross-reference and see what I thought about the players last season compared to what I think about them this season. And so from a prep standpoint, it does help me put my board together and give me a better idea of exactly what I'm looking at for these players.
8th year at ESPN. I would have guessed 4 years. Time flies. Tell us how'd you get hooked up with ESPN? You're doing local radio. You're doing a little bit with the Sooners and Sooner Vision, that kind of thing. Tell us how the ESPN connection occurred.
This is crazy, but social media. So I met Kirk Herbstreit on Twitter. I reached out to him somewhere along the way to have him as a guest of mine on a local radio show. And that's where we kind of started and developed a relationship. Then as I was doing Sooner Vision and Fox Sports Southwest picked me up to do a Big 12 show weekly during football season, I got to a point where I was like, this has gone really good. I feel really good about the content I'm putting out. I want to grow. I want to do more. So I spent probably a lot of hours going back through a bunch of my stuff that I'd done for Sooner Vision. And, Brandon Meyer, by the way, just want to thank him and all the people at Sooner Vision for that opportunity to get on television. And I went back through and I made a reel, Barry. And I had one of my producers at the time, TJ McGinnis, him and I sat down, spent countless hours picking out what we thought was my best stuff. And I whittled that down to about 15 minutes. And I took that 15 minutes and Doug Gottlieb, who's a friend, I sent it to him. I sent it to Joe Klatt at Fox. And I sent it to Kirk Herbstreit, who I'd met over Twitter. And I sent it to all these guys. And I basically just said, hey, I don't know what you can do or if you can do anything, but if you can, let me know. I want to grow this thing. And Doug Gottlieb said, you need an agent. And so he hooked me up with my agent. Joe Klatt really didn't say much of anything. He said, looks great. I'll see what I can do. Never heard anything from Fox. And Herbstreit said, I'm giving this to Lee Fitting, who at the time was overseeing college football. Well, that led to me getting my agent and some intrigue from ESPN. So I got an audition. So they fly me out to Charlotte and I do an audition with Matt Schick. And we did about 30 minutes and I did highlights to kind of more of a, topics and giving my opinion. And I did about a 30-minute audition on tape. And I went around, I met all the bosses and different people, went and had lunch with them, and they just got a chance to know me. And I'll never forget, after my audition, Matt Schick, and we still joke about this, he looked right at me and said, no, you're getting a job. I said, no way. I said, what? No way. He said, oh, I do this all the time. You killed it. You're getting a job. Sure enough, my agent, within the next 2 days, there was an offer from ESPN, and they made me an offer to be a game analyst and a studio analyst. And at that time was when ESPNU still had studio shows. So my first contract, my first offer was a small package on ESPNU, and I was flying to Charlotte all the time, every week, doing studio shows. I had never called a game from the booth in my life. I had done sideline analysis for the OU radio broadcast, but I didn't care. Let's go. Let's figure it out. And it's funny because if I could go back and watch my first few broadcasts on ESPNU, I would. Today's Dusty would laugh at then, but they love my energy. They love my ability to work a telestrator. They were really surprised at my football IQ and my knowledge as a defensive lineman. They felt that I could break down a game as good as a quarterback, and then just my overall delivery. So they liked what I did my year one. I got put on a Friday night package with Adam Amin and Molly McGrath. They loved that. And then I've been on ESPN ABC platform ever since, going on year 8. And I just signed a 3-year extension before this year. So, my health stays the same, and good Lord willing, at the very least, I'll be there for 10 years, having the great opportunity to go around, study college football, talk about it, and share a passion that for a sport that changed my life. I get to go around, talk with coaches, see fan bases, talk with players, and really all I want to do. And if you listen to me, I'm not overly critical. I like to really accentuate the positive. If I need to be critical, I will be. But I prefer to talk about, like a play happens, Barry, and let's say it's a big play, right? Now you can really hammer on the negative that happened for the guy that it didn't go well for, or you can accentuate the positive for who did something well. I try to do that because I want to celebrate these young players. I want to celebrate these fan bases. I want to celebrate the great sport of college football because it is my passion. It is what I love to do. And boy, it's been awesome ride here so far.
Well, we're running out of time, but I got to ask you about the Sooners and the Cowboys. Sooners off to the 4-0 start, playing a little defense. That's got to make your heart warm. Tell me what you've seen out of the Sooners.
Yeah, Danny Stutzman. Wow. I mean, you want to talk about having a better understanding of this defense, playing fast. I've been blown away with how well he's played so far through 4 games. I mean, he's got to be at the top of most people's linebacker All-American list so far, and it's been great. I think this past weekend was a great example against Cincinnati. Last year, Oklahoma, especially in the second half, they couldn't get stops. The last 3 possessions of this game that mattered, 3 4th and 2 situations, they get off the field. Red zone defense, forcing teams to field goals. I just think that the speed I see defensively is so much improved. I think the understanding of this defense is light years from where it was. And it's like everybody says, well, they're a better tackling team. Well, why are they a better tackling team? Because they know where to be, right? When you're out of position, it usually leads to bad tackling. They're in the right position. They're in the right places. They're playing really fast. There is a better level of player on there. I think that the personnel is continuing to get better, and with the way they're recruiting, it's only going to continue in that role. So I love what I'm seeing so far. They just got to continue to keep it going, right? I mean, it's a small sample size, but so far, the Oklahoma defense looks legit, and they look back. I want to see that defensive line continue to step up. I love what Rondell Bothroyd has brought, but they still got to continue to rush the passer up front and continue to create those TFLs, which have really come on the last few weeks. Offensively, I've been disappointed with the way they've run the ball. Look, Dante Corleone, Jawan Briggs, those are good D tackles. I don't want to take anything away from Cincinnati. But we've seen there's been several games where you look at SMU, this game, they haven't run the ball well. I thought going into the year, Oklahoma's offensive line would be a real strength. They've been pushed around a little bit up front. So I want to see that group really continue to improve. Andrell Anthony's been awesome. I thought he'd just be a vertical threat. He's a better route runner and better after the catch than I anticipated. So I think that receiver room with Nick Anderson, they're really rounding into shape. Dylan Gabriel, there's some things that were a little concerning this past week, but he's taken relatively good care of the football. I think that's good. He's got to be able to continue to cash in on those downfield shots when given the opportunity. But overall, it's a much better team than we saw a year ago, which we all expected. We're going to find out a lot, though, in 2 weeks because I just saw this Texas team, Barry. It reminded me of the Texas teams I played against. Texas is for real. And I know Oklahoma fans don't want to hear that, but I mean, with Texas at their best, as good as anybody in the country. So Oklahoma is going to find out exactly where they're at in 2 weeks down in Dallas. And for Oklahoma State, I thought they'd be better than where they're at. I got to be honest. I think Coach Gundy thought they'd be better. The offensive line's a problem. I can't run the football. I love seeing Ollie Gordon getting that big run in Ames this week, but they haven't consistently run the football, and they can't protect either. So I think that, Charlie Dickey's got to find a way. Casey Dunn's got to find a way to help them out. And whether that's some tempo at times to get defenses, off kilter, this bye week, they really need to utilize it and figure out what can we do to help out this offensive line. I'm thankful they've picked a quarterback and they're going to stick with them. Rotating quarterbacks in, I didn't think it was sustainable. And I thought you were selling any of those guys short by not allowing them 4 quarters to work through whatever it might be. So if Alan Bowman's the guy, we saw some ups, we saw some downs. I just like the fact that we gave him 4 quarters to be able to figure out exactly what he might be able to be. And defensively, they're just like plugging holes. 2 weeks ago against South Alabama, they couldn't stop the run. Well, in Ames this past week, they stopped the run great. They couldn't stop Rocco Becht in the pass game. So, Brian Nardo, new defensive coordinator, new scheme. This is an important week right now because given where their offense is, they're going to have to pick it up on the defensive end because the last couple of weeks, it's been very problematic. And I thought going into the year, given the schedule, the Cowboys can win 8 or 9 games. Now, I'm just questioning if they're going to be able to get to 6 and keep that bowl streak alive.
Well, Dusty, we're out of time, but man, this has been fun. You were a blast to cover, to watch, to write about. 20 years ago as a ball player. Same thing is true now that you're in the broadcast business. Continued good luck with ESPN, and thanks for being, as you said, basically an adopted Oklahoman. We very much appreciate it.
Well, thank you, Barry. I just want to say you said an Oklahoma football icon. You, sir, are an Oklahoma sports icon, and I appreciate everything you do for the state and you do for sports, and an honor and a privilege to be on your show here this morning. Thanks, Barry. Really appreciate it.
Well, thanks, Dusty Dvoracek of ESPN. Hey, that's going to do it. Stay with us next week. Chris Del Conte, the athletic director at Texas, will talk all things Red River rivalry. So get all your Sellout Crowd content at selloutcrowd.com. You can find this show at all your social media outlets, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube. Join us there. We'll see you next week.